to do the intros. I can see we have some new names on the call.
Thank you, Mr. President. I now embark in introducing our guest, who is not a guest anymore. Very soon we are going to be inducting her because this is her, she has done several visits with us, so she will no longer classify to be a guest. So I'll start starting with a visionary of only 10 years ago. Daphne has worked on creating a model to end up poverty through culturally sensible small businesses for people living in extreme poverty. With consistent help and support from communities like ours, Daphne founded the Humans for Education in 2016, and since then, they have impacted thousands of people. Daphne received her PhD from the University of Rochester, and in addition to being a full-time CEO of Humans for Education, she also works at the Brigham, I hope I've said it right, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and an appointment and is appointed as an appointment from Harvard University. She uses her science skills to build data collection into her non-profit to ensure that they are not just doing good, but providing that it has an effect on the community. Join me in welcoming Daphne on board.
Thank you so much, Esther. That was so sweet of you. All right, so I'm very excited to talk to you guys about what we do. And I know a few of you have already heard me speak before, but I noticed that there's a few new names here. So bear with me because I want to kind of get everybody on board. So I'm going to kind of go through all of what we do, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about our projects this year. So I'm very excited, and please feel free if you want to ask questions, just go ahead and ask questions. I'm going to share my screen now and go ahead and start the presentation. Okay, so as Esther said, my name is Daphine Pariser, and I am the CEO and founder of Humans for Education. And I'm really, really excited to be here again and talking to you guys. I know that I think we're going to have a really special relationship. It seems like we've been developing really exciting relationships with a few Rotary clubs in Nairobi already. So I hope by the end of this talk today that every single one of you individually will reflect back on the idea that every single one of you here today has the ability to change the world. And I hope that you feel like you have the ability to change the world with Humans for Education. I'm just going to mute. Yeah, there we go. All right. So Lillian Kosin is one of the women that we work with, and she had a dream of changing the world. And this is Lillian Kosin.
I always wanted to be a surgeon.
So when Lillian was 12 years old, she lives in one of the most remote areas of Kenya. She lives in Engoswani. And she had a dream of changing the world for better. And her dream was to become a surgeon when she was actually 9 years old. And the reason that she wanted to become a surgeon was because she had witnessed so many of her friends and families succumb to easily preventable diseases. And because there was no healthcare nearby, a lot of these people didn't have the ability to receive healthcare. And that same year, her elder sister was sold into an early childhood marriage at 11 years old. And Lillian's mother basically tried to fight and do everything she could so that this wouldn't happen, but there really wasn't anything that she could do. And so uneducated and impoverished, Lillian's mother basically just didn't really have a choice. But the next morning, Lillian's mother decided that Lillian would have a choice. And this whole presentation is about the story of how Lillian received that choice. Now, when I witnessed extreme poverty for the first time, I was about the same age as Lillian. I was actually 10 years old, and I really couldn't quite grasp the concept of poverty because I was 10 years old. And so when I came to Kenya, I was sitting on this bus and it came to a red light, and this child ran up to the bus window and started banging on the bus window. And I'll never forget this child who had yellow eyes and enlarged stomach. And I remember looking into his eyes, just feeling completely and utterly helpless. And at that moment, I heard laughter coming from the back of the bus. And I turned around to see people pointing and laughing and taking photos of this child mocking him. And I felt this deep pain in my stomach and my chest. And then our bus drove off, and we left this child hungry in our wake. And this brief interaction was probably no more than 30 seconds, but it changed my life forever. And I can't tell you how many nights I cried over feeling completely helpless. And it was actually our safari tour guide who came up to me and basically told me to stop crying about it, pull up my big girl pants, and if I really wanted to do something about it. And I thought, that's a good idea. So I went home, and I decided that that's what I was going to do. So I was clearly a very popular fourth grader, and instead of watching SpongeBob and Spice Girls, I decided to start researching nonprofits and for-profits. And what I learned was that about 1 billion people have lifted themselves out of poverty since 1970. And there's a lot of ways in which people have done this, but the question is, can we help people like Lillian's family lift themselves out of poverty as well? And the answer is yes. So just like the super cool kid I was in fourth grade, I decided to go back to Kenya when I was in college. And I really didn't have any solution in mind, even though I had been studying this for a really long time at this point. I didn't even think I was going to create a nonprofit. My whole goal was just to go and listen. So when I went and just wanted to ask one question. The question was, if you could help yourself and your community out of poverty, what would you do? And I asked really anyone who would listen to me. I asked mothers and children and community elders and chiefs and really anybody. And it didn't matter. Anybody that I asked really had the same answer, which is that they wanted to build a small business. They wanted to help themselves be able to afford to send their kids to school. They wanted to be able to afford healthcare and 3 meals a day, every single day. And so together, alongside with the community, we ended up building this, what you see in front of you, which is our 3-pronged approach to a solution out of poverty, which is really a sustainable way to help generations out of poverty, not just one single person, but actual families and their children out of poverty. So our main goal is to create self-sustainable small businesses to basically foster financial independence for schools and for families. But at the same time, we are trying to help reduce health-related absenteeism to ensure that people can have more days at school and more days at work. And while we're doing that, we want to remove financial barriers to education and to healthcare by ensuring that people can have more finances coming through work programs and small businesses. So in 2016, we received our 501c3, which basically made us a nonprofit here in the United States of America. And we also have our nonprofit status in Kenya as well. And so one of our first schools that we worked with was Destiny Shaper Primary School out in Angoswani. And basically what we did was we helped them to build a small business. And the reason we started with a school was because we knew that when we start with schools and children go to school, every year that they're in school, they increase their potential income by about 6 to 8%. So we helped them build a business where they could buy and sell cattle. And the reason we used this model was because Everyone in this area of Masai Mara knows cows. They know how to buy and sell cattle. They've been raised with cattle. And this was a very easy model with a small learning curve. And they're actually very resilient in times of economic fluctuation and instability. And what was really exciting was that we found out that our partners were able to increase their income by about 50% and their savings by about 100% within the first 6 to 8 months of our program. And even more exciting than that, what we found through our data collection was that we were actually stimulating local economies by building these businesses within these communities, because all of these schools were buying all of their supplies locally. They were hiring all of their teachers locally. Sorry, did somebody have a question? Okay. So this was a really, really exciting find for us. And what was even more exciting than that was the schools that we've worked with have actually survived through COVID because they've had their small businesses. Every single one of the schools that we work with are still up and running because they've had these small businesses. They have opened their doors back in January because they had income still coming in all throughout COVID. So that was very exciting. So obviously data is very exciting to us. Being a scientist, we collect a lot of data literally every single day. But obviously the data showed that finances are not just everything, and our schools knew that really well. So they knew that the health and the quality of the education is extremely important. So alongside building the small business for Destiny Shaper, we needed to ensure that they had clean water, hand washing, and a female sanitation program. So we built that right as we were building the small business program. And what we found was that within 6 months, about 86% of our students used the clean water and hand washing stations. And within that 6 months, we had decreased wash-related diseases by 36%, which is malaria, typhoid, and dysentery. Those were the ones that we were looking at within 6 months. So that was really exciting. And in addition to that, our data also showed that these schools were not just affecting the students themselves and the local economies, but what was really exciting and what we did not expect at all was that the families were actually impacted by this. So what we found out was that the families actually were impacted financially. And so what was happening was the schools weren't really asking the families for as much money anymore, because now they were getting money from their small businesses. And because they weren't asking for so much money, now the families had more money that they were able to save. So they were able to see a reduction in hospital fees because their kids were healthier. They were able to save money on food, and they had a reduction in school fees. And because of all of these things, they were able to send more kids to school. They had more meals per day, and some of them even started their own small businesses, which was just so freaking cool. Sorry, I get really excited about this. So this is really fun for me to talk about. Okay, so how does all of this work at the end of the day? I know like all this data is really exciting, at least for me. But at the end of the day, how does this really actually work? So we really need to ensure that our partners undergo a lot of different things. So we have these certain evaluations that they have to meet, and then they have to undergo a lot of different training. But in terms of if we partner with people like Rotary, for example, how do you guys know that we're doing all these evaluations and trainings and things like that? Well, the way that you know that is because we actually do a ton of reporting and a ton of data collection. And I'm happy to show you our data collection, but it is very intensive. So basically what we do is we prove all of our projects by GPS coordinates. So once our project is completed, you'll receive the GPS coordinates, and you guys are in Kenya, so you're welcome to come out and you're welcome to see the projects firsthand. And so this is really extremely important so that you guys can really understand and really see that these projects are up and running. But the other thing that we do, The other thing that we do is we actually take testimonials and surveys from all of the people that we work with. And this is a testimonial from one of the headmasters at our schools who's talking about the electricity at his school. So basically, because his school was able to have, I think you can see the light bulb up here, because his school was able to have a small business, he was able to implement electricity in the entire school. And so this is a testimonial that he sent us to send to one of our donors that talks about the electricity at 8 p.m. his time. And in addition to that, we also go in and do really extensive mixed method surveys to really understand. So you'll end up getting these very in-depth reports to understand what's going on, not just from the headmasters, but the staff, the students, and the families as well. But the data collection doesn't just stop there. So we have really intensive data collection programs where we train all of our staff on how to collect data themselves. And so we actually collect data from literally everything from number of books in the library to school finances. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to tell you guys that we increased the number of books at this school by X%. And the school finances were increased by 50%, or all these sorts of things. And this is why our nonprofit really puts data collection on a high pedestal, so we can ensure that we're really having the impact that we're intending to have. And then the most important thing that we do is we work through local partners. I know that I'm from the US, and it's really important for me to ensure that we're not coming in and we're not saying that we understand the culture or that we understand anything that's really going on in these communities, because the thing is that we really don't. Even though I've worked here for almost 7 years now, there's nothing that I understand about these communities. And so really knowing that we have these people who are from these communities directly, who really understand the ins and outs of the specific cultures, is extremely important. And so by listening, we really help our schools create their own financial independence and really help, provide projects that are important for the local communities and the local schools and families. So basically, when you guys are considering the partnering with us, there are a few expectations in terms of what you would expect when we're building a new school. And so one of the reasons that I'm putting this up here today is because last time I talked with you guys, we had talked about a global grant that we were doing with Rochester Rotary. So we have decided that we're not going to be doing a global grant because Rotary International is no longer doing matches. But we have moved ahead with Rochester Rotary by ourselves. So Rochester Rotary and as well, actually Rotary from District 9212, which I think is the district in your guys' area, is actually working with us to do our own extremely large grant. So the grant is going to be at the end of the day about $60,000. So we're going to be ending up with our own new school at the end of the day. And so this is what the expectation is. So the expectation is that the school will basically impact about 1,900 people sustainably every single year. So there will be new kids coming into the school every single year, but because the school has its own small business, it will continue to impact these children every single year as they come through this school. And these are all of the things that we expect to see through this project with these schools. So not only are we creating businesses that are stimulating the local economy, improving education, and ensuring safe and sanitary learning conditions basically for everybody, but when everything is said and done, we're basically creating financial independence that empowers entire communities. So I want you to think back to basically the beginning of this talk. So at the beginning of the talk, I was talking about Lillian. So Lillian and her mother ended up walking 8 miles to Destiny Shaper Primary School, and they ended up begging the headmaster to basically take Lillian on as a scholarship student because they didn't want her to go into an early childhood marriage. And because Destiny had the ability to have a small business, they were able to take Lillian on as a scholarship student. They had the finances to do that. And she was saved from an early childhood marriage. And she's actually still in school today, 4 years later, well on her way to becoming a surgeon. So I know that we have talked before, but if we decide that we want to continue on and continue with our partnership, we have the ability to change the lives of people like Lillian for 1,900 other children. And I just wanted to show this screen because there's a lot of reasons why it would make sense to partner with us, because we actually have a lot of the same goals as Rotary, and these are our Rotary partners below. In addition to that, we actually also contribute to 11 of the 17 UN sustainability goals. And so basically with all of this together, you guys can basically also help sustain 11 of the UN sustainability goals. So I really couldn't do this without my extremely incredible team. And so I really appreciate your guys' attention. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that, please take a picture of the screen. I can also send you guys the link to this slide. But I also just want to say that students like Lillian are going to be the next generation of activists, scientists, policymakers, and really, you know, these are the people that are going to change the world. And so our whole goal is to empower students to lift themselves out of poverty through education. And so I really, really hope that you guys will decide to join Rochester Rotary and the Rotaract this year. I'm really excited to talk to you guys. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take your guys' questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Daphne, for that very detailed discussion about your project. And we must admit you're doing a great job. Can actually see it right there. And we can feel the passion that you have to uplift the lives of the less privileged in society. So totally appreciate that. Now, our members, it's our time to ask questions. If you have any question.
Mr. President, can I go first?
Yes, you can.
Well, let me begin by thanking Daphne for that wonderful presentation. And you're right, Mr. President, the passion in her is quite infectious. And you can always judge the success of a project from the passion of the leaders. So for that, I commend Daphne for that. Now, maybe Daphne, this is a question seeking clarification. And then I'll ask another question. But the first one is, do you only work with rural communities?
So currently we only work with rural communities, but we have considered working in closer proximity to Nairobi before. So we definitely have the ability to do it. It really just depends specifically on the people that we need to work with. So we have a very stringent evaluation process. So really, as long as the people pass the evaluation process, it doesn't matter where they live.
Okay, thank you for that. Now that leads me to my second question. If, for example, we are to partner with you and we are to choose, for example, a local community, for us, we cannot really go down to the rural areas because of our geographical location. But you'll agree with me, and maybe from your data you can tell me, but we can tell you from Kenya that we have, even in the city, extreme poverty. Yeah. Not necessarily rural related, but right in the CBD, right in the capital city, people living under $1 a day. In fact, if you compare them per capita with the people in the rural areas, you find the people in the rural areas probably make more per capita than the poor in the city. So, and yet the challenges are the same. So if you're going to, my question to you is, are you considering, for example, rolling out such that even the poor in cities can also be impacted by this kind of a program?
Yeah, 100%. So actually, the way that we're trying to build the program right now is so that it's actually not specific to the geographic location. So we're trying to build it so that it can actually be used anywhere in the world and not even just specifically in Kenya. So eventually, probably within the next 10 years, we want to actually be in places like India and South Africa and stuff like, South America and places like that. So we're definitely open to working in other places. Right now, the way that we do this actually is what we do is we don't build businesses that are concrete, right? So we don't go in and say, you have to build a cattle business. We go in and we say, what resources do you have? What skills do you have? And then based on that, what partnerships do we have to help you be successful in the business that you can build? So it's really based on all of that. So that way we can build something that we hope will be successful for that specific person or school or whoever we end up partnering with. So yes, it is certainly possible.
Okay, and finally, how long does the once you take up on a community, is there a phase out? Is there a phase out period, or is it now just open?
Yes. So basically, what we do is we basically grant them funds. So we do a ton of training, we grant them funds, and we work with them to manage the funds over the first year. And then no more funds are distributed at all after that first year, but we continue to train them and work with them for a 4-year period. And then after that 4-year period, they're allowed to continue to come to our classes as they see fit, but they're no longer required to. So after 4 years, they're basically deemed completely independent and they're on their own and they can do things as they need to. But they're still, they're still welcome to come and receive whatever training they would like to receive.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on, members, any other question?
Mr. President, my hand has been up.
Oh, sorry. I think I'm sorry for that.
But our incoming president has taken away most of my questions. I think we think on the same wavelength. However, Daphne, let me appreciate the name Destiny Shaper School.
Mm.
I wish we all went to schools which were named Destiny Shapers, something.
Mm.
Some of us, if I remember the names of our schools, I think they didn't shape anything. However, going forward, what you have explained to us fits in well in what Rotary calls adopt a village. I don't know whether that concept is still available, and Jeff Opat would be the best person, or P would be the best person to answer that, because I remember we attended something together with him. The adopt a village takes care of the children, the parents, and the wider community. So I just hope it will fall into that, because in Rotary we all work in different categories. Now, my second question is, you've mentioned the amount of 60,000 USD. Is this amount for building the premises, or is this amount for sustenance of the 1,900 persons within that community?
Yeah, so typically it depends on what type of project we're building. So not every project is necessarily going to be 60,000 USD. So the reason that the project that we're building with Rochester Rotary was so expensive was because what we're doing is we're trying to build full community independence. So what we're doing is we're taking a school and we're building a small business for the school. And at the same time, we're taking the families at that school and we're building small businesses for all of the families at the school. So what we're trying to do all together is ensure that while the school is earning its own money and being able to sustain itself, the families are now able to start paying for their tuition and start paying for more kids to go to school and things like that. So when Rochester Rotary and the Rotaract in Nairobi wanted to do this project with us, they decided that that's the way that they wanted to go with the project. So it really depends on what kind of projects you guys want to work on and things like that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I can see there is Justus Wambai who has his hand up. Justus, you have a question?
Oh, sorry, my hand was up a while ago. It wasn't a question. Sorry about that. Let me just put it down.
It's an old hand.
Yeah.
Okay. So Justus, are you a guest or a Rotarian?
A Rotarian to be.
Ah, fantastic. Welcome on the call. Nice to have you on board. Okay.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome.
But we have not seen your face, you know.
I think you just forgot me, but here I am.
Let's see the face now. So they can put, okay. I know you very well. I know the face, definitely know the face. Yes, yes. Karibu. Okay, so any questions, members, or are we happy with the presentation? So our projects are not here, but I know IPP Lucy is around, who is in charge of foundation. And I know this will end up in her docket. IPP, you are quiet. Do you have anything to say? Any question for Daphne, or you are good?
Well, thanks, Prezo. I don't really have a question other than the fact that I'm inspired. I'm one person who advocates for education and independence and giving children what they require to be able to build future. And therefore, this particular project is quite inspiring to me. And actually, I would really look forward to seeing and hearing more, and even if possible, working together with Daphne. I must say, when I was president, one thing I looked at was actually children education. I even ended up adopting one child myself because there was no project, and this child was actually going to miss Form 1. And then the people who are responsible were not even, even when they were given forms to complete for KCB, for equity funding and education, they were nowhere to be seen. So the child actually stays with a Good Samaritan at the moment as we speak. And somehow between me and my friends, we're able to raise good money. We've paid the entire Form 1, we are going into Form 2. And therefore such projects that actually, they are really close to my heart when I listen to some of these projects that are uplifting families, that are uplifting communities, that are, plugging those intelligent kids from where they are and building a future for them. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Daphne more and, and hopefully working together if that's possible as a club. Yes, that's my comment for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucy. And I just want to say one other thing, sorry. I didn't mention this, but with the Rochester Rotary, all the businesses we're building this year are all female funded. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is specifically because we know that when females are building their own businesses, more children go to school and the households are fed more often and they go to the clinics more often. And so I really appreciate you saying that, Lucy, because hopefully we'll see a lot more kids in school now because of that.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Just an appeal to any member, any officer who has the link for attendance, please put it on the chat so that members can register their attendance for this meeting. I don't know whether any of the officers has the link. Please, if you have, just do the honors for us. And members, let's register so that I can see we are more than 20, we are actually 22. So please register and indicate which club you're from or if you're part of Rotary Club of Nairobi Gigiri, or visiting us from another club. Okay. So I think in the interest of time, we have about 5 minutes to the end of the call. I want to invite our IPP Lucy to give us a vote of thanks for that quite amazing talk that we've just had with Daphne. So,
Mr. President, just one
yes.
more minute.
Okay.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
To ask. The income generation, is it for the parent or is it for the children? Is it for the parent or is it for the school? I think I didn't get that properly.
Yeah, so we do both. We build businesses for schools and we build them for families.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you, Daphne.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then. So now we can move on to the vote of thanks.
All right. I must say that was a fantastic presentation, very well articulated, and the results can be seen through numbers. Thank you so much, Dr. Daphne, for that presentation. And as I mentioned earlier, that it's quite a good project, and I can see if it grows and goes to more schools and impact in bigger communities and more families, definitely we will have something to celebrate as we go along. And the other thing is that the fact that it looks as creating self-sustaining businesses to foster financial independence, reduce health-related absenteeism, and also reduce financial barriers in education and healthcare. It, through WASH and all these businesses for the communities, for the schools, and even the testimonials that you're picking from the headmasters and the people impacted are really telling a good story. And so I really want to thank you so much for even starting that. And as a member of Rotary Club of Gigiri, I would look forward to actually having more conversations with you and perhaps even partnering if that's possible. Definitely something that needs to be discussed internally before it's confirmed. Yes, I welcome you again and again, and to the family of Rotary Club of Gigiri. And yes, looking forward to working with you. Asante sana.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Lucy.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for that. And thank you so much, Daphne, for that presentation. We are truly grateful. We are now going to move on to the SAA part, though our SAA actually called me and told me she